Okay, so we have circled through the Mighty Gear Axe Greg Koch version, which, by the way, I think is a phenomenal instrument. And the price point, like Greg was saying, the price point is remarkable. So congratulations on the new signature guitar and pickups. I'd like to continue this tech business, if we can, and talk a little bit about what you plug this thing into.
Yes, the amplifier. About, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, I was in Europa at the Frankfurt Music Messe, the Music Mess, if you will. And I was doing stuff for Fishman, doing some demos and some playing and hanging out. And right across the way from us was the Koch amplifier booth. And I'd known about them for years, and I had checked out a few of their amps, and I really liked them. You know, I liked the functionality of them. I liked what they did. And people would always joke, well, you should really play those amps because your name's on them. I'm like, well, that is funny. But at the time, I was doing a bunch of stuff with Fender, so I was like, well, that's a problem, you know? So all of a sudden, as I said, the nebulous kind of parting of the ways, which never really kind of was defined, or just like, well, they're not calling me and I'm not calling them. I guess, you know, I guess I'm free to do whatever, right? So next thing you know, we started shooting the breeze. Dolph Koch is his name. It's a German name, but it's a Dutch company. And he came over, and his wife saw me play someplace and had purchased some CDs. Like, well, you know, we're fans of yours. We got your CDs. And I said, well, I'm fans of your amp. I played one of your amps when I was in Italy once, and yada, yada, yada. So we started saying, wouldn't it be funny if we worked together? And I'm like, well, that would be serendipitous. So I ended up... Indeed. So I ended up using one of their Twin Tone 3 amplifiers, which I really dug. Kind of the template of theirs is everything is EL34s. Most of their amps anyway, and that's kind of his platform he likes to work from. And it's a clean sound, and there's like a lead and rhythm volume for both channels. So you got clean sound with a boost, lead sound with that same level of boost, but then there's a gain boost on top of that. Reverb is really tasty. What I really like about the clean sound is that you can turn it up and it warms up. The top doesn't get real shrill, but the low end doesn't fart out. So you can get a nice clean sound that compresses in a really natural and cool way. It's just, and it lives together really well with the lead sound, which, as you know, is not always the case. A lot of times, you know, a multi-channel amp is kind of a crapshoot.
Very true.
So I dug the basic premise of their amps, and they said, well, if we did a signature amp for you, what would you do different? And I said, well, I like the template. But I would like to just be able to maybe dirty up that clean sound just a little bit more, like maybe like a blackface amp cranked-ish type of thing. And I said I want a little bit more of a vivid reverb, like maybe a long, I guess I call them long pan, but I wanted the 3 controls, you know, the dwell, the tone, and the volume. But a sound I always have adored over the years is on the early 60s Brown Tolex era of Fender, they had something called harmonic vibrato, which actually sounds more like a univibe than it does tremolo.
Yes.
And I said, I want that. And so they're like, okay, we'll work on it. And the thing that they did to help get a little bit more majesty to the clean sound, if needed, was a thing called an OTS circuit, which they explained. OTS stands for output tube saturation. So there is a 1/2 watt power amp tube that you can overdrive and then add to the front of either channel, the lead channel or the clean channel. So it comes with a 5-button foot switch, and the foot switch goes clean channel, overdrive boost is the second button. The third button is this OTS, which you can add to either channel, and then vibrato on and off, and reverb on and off. And I should mention that you can also have a conventional tremolo. There's a button where you can go between harmonic vibrato, conventional tremolo, and then where you want that to be. If you want that before reverb or if you want it after reverb, which is cool. And I wanted blue Tolex, and I like 10-inch speakers. I'm a big Vibrolux fan and Super Reverb fan. So I said I want 2 10s, and then the way that they constructed the cabinet, it's got a ton of low end. So even though it has the 10s, which, you know, you get this nice punchy throw and the low end keeps tight, but because you have this cabinet, it really has a lot of low end for a cabinet like that.
That's phenomenal. Well, there you have it. It does match your guitar, which, by the way, I like Sonic Blue.
I do like Sonic Blue. We're calling this color Blucifer.
Blucifer. There it is. Ladies and gentlemen.
Is that weird?
No, because if people don't want that, they can get red Saphir or TV yellow Saphir.
Well, actually, no. It's POW red and WOW yellow.
Very good name. Did you come up with that?
I came up with blue Saphir. Rest assured.
There you go. All right. Well, we got into the gear things, ladies and gentlemen, deep, actually. Thank you, by the way, for explaining this to us. I would like to get into some influences of yours. Like, how did you come about being able to pick up a guitar and play virtuosically? Is that a word? I don't even know if that's a word, but play in such a way where, like, you're going from idea to idea to idea, improvise. It sounds like you're on fire. You can change from clean to distorted. I mean, that's one thing that I think the fans and people that are even trying to study guitar, really, like all of us, including myself, how do you get to that point where the ideas flow non-stop and all the time, every time a guitar is put into your hands? How does that happen?
Oh, well, thank you. Well, sometimes they flow better than others. But, I guess the whole thing is that the way I approach music in general, I'm a fan of people. You know what I mean? I try to get in the mindset of people that I'm influenced by. But I try to learn their language. I don't want to replicate what they did per se. They have certain aspects of what they do in their vocabulary that I wish to add to my vocabulary. So I don't want to go from being, a pale representation of X, Y, and Z. I just want to learn the key phrases in their thing that I want to add to my vocabulary so I can say the shit that I want to say. You know what I mean? So that's what I've done. I kind of get a little OCD when I get into somebody, but never to the point where I'm learning solos verbatim. I've never done that. I can kind of do a tribute if I do the solo to Crossroads or something. It's pretty much in the ballpark, but it's not exact, because I just want to learn the language. So typically, what I'll do is I'll obsess about a certain individual's playing. There's something about the way that they approach the instrument that I want to add to my thing. So I'll kind of live in their world a little bit, grab that stuff, and pretty intensely, I'll read about the person, get in their brain, their mindset, what they were all about, and then I'll add that to I'll cherry pick the stuff and add it to my world. And over the years, I've done that to so many different players, and then I'll revisit, from time to time. And I guess the only thing I could say that I've just been blessed with a good memory. I don't forget much. So it's not, I don't have perfect retention or any, I don't have perfect pitch or any of this weird, kind of savant-esque talents that some people have, but I do have a good memory. So I remember a lot of stuff. Once it's in there, it can be recalled to, not, as I said, not a perfect extent, but kind of at the right time, things come to the surface. You know what I mean? So it's almost better that it's not exact total recall. So I've added all this stuff to the stew over the years so that when I'm playing and I grab a guitar and I start playing, and all of a sudden I set in a certain direction, it'd be like, oh yeah, that. You know what I mean? And then it just kind of comes to the surface. And then, I don't approach guitar from a safe point of view in the fact of, obviously, when we're doing those videos at WoW, the camera's running, there's very little that's in your control other than the moment where you're sitting in that chair just playing. There's a lot of, it is what it is, kind of. But
yes,
the safe approach would try to do the same exact thing every time, and I just can't do that. Well, I just won't do that because that would be boring. So I go for stuff, and sometimes it works, and other times it gets a little crazy. But there's also a good healthy dose of humor and irreverence in there, so that even if I go off the rails a little bit, I'm able to kind of wheel it back around. And in that wheeling, in every twist and turn, there's an avenue that I can go off into that might be recalled from some of this former inundation, if you will, to whoever it might be. You know what I mean? So it's just a lot of time and getting into a lot of different people. I was never very religious, as I like to say, about a certain genre. I've done a lot of times studying blues and a lot of the nuance of a bunch of different blues players. And I can play in blues bands and do what's appropriate for that, that particular various different styles of blues and so on and so forth. But I don't kind of hang my hat on, well, I'm a blues man. Not that there's anything wrong with that. If people do that and they want to hold up the traditions and all that, I think that's fantastic. But for me, I just like it as a voice that's in my arsenal, because I just find blues guitar playing to be extraordinarily emotive, you know what I mean? And the way that you can phrase and bend strings and so on and so forth. All that stuff I find is very useful for what I want to say. But I don't want to belong to one tribe of music cat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you've carved your own stylistic genre, from all the influences that you've kind of put together in the way that you described. One thing I do want to point out is that, your humor is incredible. I'm a firm believer, I'm sure of many, that you should have your own show, which I think might be in the works at some point. But your guitar playing is phenomenal by yourself, but a lot of people, I don't think, know that you are a prolific songwriter, and you have how many albums?
I think 14 or 15 at this point. Well, what's really weird about the internet is that from doing Wildwood videos and just a video from, like, the video I did with the Anderton guys, or I did a video years ago with Muriel Anderson, and I did that Tune of Mine, Spank It, and I kind of go into this little medley at the end and do like a little nod to Jimmy Page and all this kind of stuff. We do like a chicken picking version of Stairway to Heaven. So there's different aspects where people will see you on the internet, and they're like, oh, I really like that. But unlike myself, who I'm like, if I see somebody I really dig, I was like, I want to know everything about them. Well, this must not be it, right? They must have. But it's so weird with the phenomenon of the internet. I mean, people don't do that. That's not in the wheelhouse of most people. So they see one thing, like, well, I really like watching the videos. Oh, you have records? And I'm like, yeah. And then some are like, oh, that's really cool. And then they'll get into it and they'll buy them. Other people are like, I just like hearing you play by yourself. I'm like, okay, I'm whatever. Yeah. But and then there'll be other people that I'll run across to, and said, I really, really liked that Grip record. It was great. I go, well, that was 2001. And yeah, you got anything since then? I'm like, oh yeah. Well, what have you been doing? So they get into little, and again, I'm not making fun of it, but I am making light of the fact that it's great that they're all into it for a certain reason, but it's not like they can put all the different things together. And when in this day and age, as you well know, it's not like the old days where it's like, okay, I'm a recording artist. That's how I make all my money. I tour, I play, and we're done. It's the industry has changed so much that you have to have so many different irons in the fire, especially, as we mentioned, with the 4 kids and the wife and the mortgage and the cars and whatnot. So therefore, I do all these different things and I enjoy doing them, but it's almost as if it's not instinctual that people kind of draw from dot to dot to dot to figure out all this, what you do. So, I mean, the whole thing I did was starting off to playing is I just wanted to play. And I always wanted to have my own band and do my own music. So our first CD came out in 1993. That was I had a band called Greg Koch and the Tone Controls. And it was our own kind of bluesy, funky, jazzy, chicken picking amalgam, vocal-oriented stuff, but plenty of jamming and so on and so forth. And, then 3 records later, I started to do some different musicians and doing stuff. I did a couple records on Steve Vai's label. In 2001, I had a record called The Grip, which was kind of more of an instrumental leading side compilation of the stuff I had done on the previous 7 records, I believe, at that point. And then I did a record after that called Radio Free Gristle, where I did all this crazy instrumental stuff with kind of humorous little vignettes in between the songs, like some kind of strange mutant radio show. And that happened. I put out 2 records with that particular label, which was weird for me because I'd always done labels. I've always put out records on my own, and I put the records out. I paid for everything. I made the money, was able to pay the guys. So it was my first. I didn't realize when you got a record label, it's like you didn't make money from records anymore. You got your face in magazines. Your cool guy rating went up. But as far as that being a real source of income, it was just kind of like, oh, is this how it works? And then I got signed to this label in Europe at that point in time. 2003, I got signed with Pro Vogue, or Mascot, and I put out 2 records with them. And then that kind of forestalled. And then I had a band together with Roscoe Beck and Tom Breckline and Malford Milligan, the great Austin vocalist. And we were really excited about it because it was, there was a lot to like there. You know what I mean? A lot of track record. So we had this live record that we did at this. We kept on doing these appearances on this radio show in Milwaukee. And after 3 appearances, we listened to this. We got a record. So I went back to the people at Mascot at that time. I was like, hey, this record's done. Let's put this thing out. And they just kind of dragged their feet a little bit, and my agent over in Europe at the time was just like, dude, I got this other label in Germany, they'll put the record out, let's just do it. So then I jumped ship from them and was on this label, ZYX Pepper Cake, over in Germany. They had they had good distribution the whole area. So I did, I guess, 3 more records with them. And then after that, I started putting out records on my own again. I started making money again, which was great. So I put out another 3 at that point. But when I started this new group with my son on drums and this organ player, Toby, I knew it was something magical. Not that I didn't believe in the other stuff, but the other stuff wasn't really predicated on a band sound. It was like me and a couple
Well, yeah, speaking of what you just brought up, so let's talk about why you're here at NAMM, in the sense that you do have a new band called the Koch Marshall Trio.
Yes.
And this band started when?
It was 2017 that we first got together, March of 2017.
Okay, and you guys have 1 album already released, correct?
That's correct. That came out in February of 18.
Excellent. And you guys are doing some touring. You've been doing some touring with this band?
We have. We've been to Europe. We've done some stuff around the States. We finally have a new agent in the U.S. that'll book us around the States a little bit more, and then we're going back over to Europe late March and April again.
Europeans, did you hear that? Greg Koch Marshall Trio will be...
We're coming.
They're going to be in your neighborhood. I saw them play actually on Sunday, this past Sunday, a week ago, and it was absolutely a terrifying show. I mean, from beginning to end. And Greg does do his humor in between there. I mean, it's remarkable. You guys got to go to the show. It was 90 minutes of just pure fun and amazing musicianship. So wait, and I want to point out too, your son is the drummer.
That is correct. He was the one that he had been on 2 other records of mine, and we had done some gigging together. But I live in Milwaukee, and he was going up to Minneapolis. He went to school in the Twin Cities, music school, and so he's got a lot of connects up there. So he'd go up there and he would do gigs, and he would come home and he's like, Dad, you got to hear this organ player I'm playing with. He's amazing. We should really get together with him. I was like, yeah, but that's up in Minneapolis. It's 5 hours away. It doesn't do me much good. So on one particular occasion, Dylan said, Toby, this guy's name's Toby. He's going to be in town. He's buying a Leslie speaker from someone in town. We should jam. So we got together. I knew he was coming over. I called a buddy of mine who owned a studio. I said, you aren't open today and not doing anything, are you? He's like, absolutely, come on over. Because I knew we had a B3 and everything. We went over there, and the first notes we ever played, I just said, let's do a shuffle in G, and that's the first tune on that Toby Arrives record. So it's the first time we ever played anything together. You hear it. You hear them. So I knew right away it was a magical thing. So, my son's got a lot of ownership in it, because obviously he kind of put all the wheels in motion. And but it's not nepotism. The kid could play. You know what I mean? He's a grooving demon. So.
Absolutely.
And so
he's a great kid.
Yeah, absolutely. So it all panned out.
Well, that's quite amazing. Father-son duo into a trio, the Koch Marshall Trio. So why don't we wrap this up and talk a little bit about what your plans are for this year with the band, and tell us what you got going on for this year, 2019.
Well, I guess the thing that'll be coming out sooner than later is this acoustic record. I did this acoustic record I've been kind of working on when I have time, and the engineer is like, hey, what are you doing next Wednesday? And then I go in like from a 1 to 4 slot. That's like every time we would do it, like, I'm available from 1 until 4. And I'd go over there and I'd plug in a guitar and I'm like, well, I don't know, what should we do? Oh, I guess let's try this one. So I really had no idea what we were going to do. So anyway, it's a couple 13 tunes, and some of them are solo tunes, some are layered, but it's all just acoustic guitar. And I did put a dobro part on one. I actually played banjo on one of the other tunes. So that's coming out. But we have a bunch of material stored up for another record. We've started some peripheral recording for it. So we're going to get that out before the end of the year, I'm sure. We got to get in the queue of Mascot, though, because we're back on Mascot. Did I mention we're back on Mascot? Yeah. So they have a link.
Actually, you didn't. So just with the new band, you guys signed with Mascot.
I reached out to Ed, said, hey, it's been a while. I got this band, and I sent him some stuff. He's like, perfect. We have a new label we're launching under the Mascot umbrella called Players Club, which is more instrumental oriented. This is perfect. So out it went. So it's like a 4-record deal. So we're going to work on the next one and get it out. We got plenty of tunes. We got more tunes than we know what to do with. So we're going to get that out hopefully before the end of the year. And we're going over to Europe, as I said, late March, April. But then we'll probably get back over there before the end of the year. And but yeah, it's been going great. I can dig it.
That's phenomenal. It's been so great to spend a little bit of time with you here in this little box that we got.
Thank you, Fishman, for letting us use your lair.
Yeah, it's quite nice, actually. And I want to thank Music Players for letting me do this interview with my good friend Greg Koch.
Thanks for having me.
So why don't we wrap it with me handing you the mic and you kind of taking us out the way you do, that special way.
I'm going to tell you right now that this microphone is almost in the hue of Blucifer, as you can plainly see. Yes. But thank you so much. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for your very informative questions, Prashant.
Oh, absolutely my pleasure.
You're a magical musician and a magical soul. Gregory Koch here in the Fishman Lair at NAMM 2019. We'll see you later.